Live from London, this is The World Today.
Hello, I'm Robin Dwyer. Welcome to the programme. Our top stories. China sets a growth target of around 5% as Premier Li Qiang outlines plans to boost foreign investment and modernise industry. Voters head to the polls for Super Tuesday, the biggest nomination event in the US presidential election. Will it bring any surprises? Gaza ceasefire in the balance. Negotiators extend talks, hoping to reach a deal before Ramadan and avoid an Israeli ground operation. And the United Nations says there is convincing evidence of sexual violence in the October the 7th Hamas attacks against Israel. China's government says it will transform the economy, setting a growth target of around 5% for this year. Premier Li Qiang outlined key priorities for the country with a work report opening the annual meeting of top legislators. Over the coming week, they'll review a number of policy bills and proposals, setting the country's agenda for the year ahead. Let's talk to our correspondent, Penina Karibe, who's in Beijing. So, Penina, what were the main things that were highlighted in this government work report?
Well, Robin, this was Premier Li Qiang's first government work report, and he started by acknowledging what he called an unusual, challenging international environment for China. But he said that China had managed to withstand those external pressures and also deal with what is called internal difficulties. And then after that, he launched into the achievements of the past year. Remember, this was the work report for the year 2023, and he highlighted the economy, which has been a big focus area here in China. And he said that the economy had grown by 5.2%. He said that the GDP had surpassed 126 trillion yuan, putting it or ranking China among the fastest growing global economies. And he said that they were also in the process of modernizing the traditional industries. He talked about investment in science and technology, Robin, but he also put forward some proposals. And one of those was, he said that China should strengthen macro regulations. He talked about widening the domestic market. He also mentioned deepening reforms and opening up across the board. He talked about urbanizing rural areas to revitalize those areas' economy. And as well, he said that China needs to work to achieve self-reliance and strength in science and technology, Robin.
And Penina, China says it's going to develop new quality productive forces. Talk us through what that means.
Well, you know, Premier Li, in his report today, did talk about, like I mentioned, modernizing traditional industries. And he said that already the Chinese government had laid the groundwork to transform these industries. He said they had experienced accelerated growth and upgrading. And he said that now China is looking to innovation to go beyond the traditional ways of spurring economic growth. So we are talking about high quality, high efficiency, high technology. Premier Li did mention that innovative development in digital economy will be highly supported by the government. He said the Chinese government will be launching an AI Plus initiative. And he also said that China is enhancing or plans to enhance and consolidate its leading position in industries, Robin. So basically, in a nutshell, that is what that means.
Penina, thank you very much. Our correspondent, Penina Karibe in Beijing. Well, Xiaolin Chen is head of international at the investment management firm Crane Shares, and I'm pleased to say she's with me here in the studio. Welcome to the studio, Xiaolin. So China's setting an economic growth target for this year, unchanged on last year's target. What do you think it's going to take to sustain stable growth?
It is very important in this NPC meeting happening now, right now in China, in Beijing, to get a couple of things to get that question answered. Is one, what is their target? What is their goal? What is their focus is as a Chinese leader? To me, thus far, the released work report reconfirmed economic growth is on top of their agenda. Obviously, Premier Li Qiang said around 5% GDP. That's just about in line with market expectation, right? Not higher, not lower. But if you listen to his report very carefully, which I did, listen to his original report in Chinese for 52 minutes long, that I here very clearly, economic growth is on top of the agenda. Monetary policy, fiscal policy is expected will be very sufficient to support the economic growth. Thirdly, most important is addressing a lot of high quality growth. To me, a little bit of a surprise to me on this report, good surprise, was the plan to issue long-term, ultra-long dated bonds. Why would you do that if you don't have the confidence to grow the economy? It must show the government officials are very confident with the long-term trajectories of China. That's one. Second, they have embedded a lot of the challenges domestically they face, also challenges they face externally into their economic target goal. That means they are very realistic, they are very conservative. In other ways, they have prepared back pocket money, if needed be, to deliver the results. I'm particularly interested to hear more on the steps, particularly touch on the new sectors such as EV and technology, innovation. They mentioned AI repeatedly, so those will actually make China to deliver the sustainable growth they aim to achieve.
And what emerges from these two sessions meetings are watched extremely closely around the world. What changes do you think analysts and foreign observers might be looking for that might make a difference to what's happening in China and also the world?
This is obviously a very important meeting. Like a global investor is trying to get a few ideas. One is, what is your agenda, which we discussed earlier, which is very clearly said. The other things is, will you support such growth agenda, which all got answered. Investors obviously look for this to look for a common feels and sentiment to say, will Chinese environment or the environment set by the Chinese policymaker will be pro-growth, pro-corporate, help the corporate to grow. If it is, then they will look at the potential opportunity for each of the different corporates in China presents to. If you ask me, the NPC thus far, the release report, gave us the confidence the environment in China is pro for the corporate to grow. Okay, that will help the corporate to build up the confidence to borrow more money to expand their business. That environment is very much set by looking at this report. Obviously, the coming days will be important to look at the budget, detailed budget planning in the next 2 days, and also the closing mark from President Xi Jinping on the priorities they will focus on this year to grow. One most important thing investors should look out to, this is the second year of President Xi Jinping's third term. This marks a very important timeline for them to deliver the 5-year goal in this year.
And the message has really been that China's door remains open to the world. What do you think emerges from this report that can perhaps address any concerns about the economy and the policy direction?
The very recent announcements, particularly touch base on finance, banking, all those sectors, used to be very restricted for foreign investments. Now you can own up to 100%, which is a huge step forward to say they are very much open the door for investments to come in, foreign investments to come in. MasterCard just get approved on business to China. I always joke aside to say that's free money. Credit card swap, and then you have a transaction, you collect your transaction fee per the transaction. MasterCard going to China as a business provider to Chinese consumer will allow foreign investors to use them as a service, also set by the example to say, even very restricted sector, we're welcoming foreign investments. Hopefully this will give investors the confidence the environment is set pro the corporates, pro market, pro welcoming investments. They also led by actions to welcoming investments to foreign business to come to China. Hopefully that's in combination to give the comforts to corporates to join China's developing in the next decade.
Xiaolin Chen from Crane Shares, thank you very much.
Pleasure.
A key line of the work report is new quality productive forces, meaning going beyond traditional models of economic growth. The southern Chinese city of Dongguan is known as China's toy-making capital, exporting around 1/5 of all toys made in China. Our correspondent Huang Fei looks at how the industry has changed.
Step into a world where technology meets imagination. Robotic arms and sensors bring raw materials to life, crafting a wide range of toy animals for domestic and global markets. 8 years ago, Calvin Wu transformed his father's old factory into one fit for the digital age.
When it comes to Industry 4.0, people think of auto manufacturing, high value-added sectors, and lights-out factories. But I think the key is harnessing data to streamline management. We used to rely on people and emails to communicate, and it would take 20 minutes for an executive decision to reach factory floors. That delay alone caused a lot of waste.
Today, Kelvin and his team have all the factory's real-time data at their fingertips. The Internet of Things allows them to manage production without delay, reduce middle management, and raise productivity by 70%. But Kelvin still believes seamless cooperation between man and machine is crucial.
As a toy manufacturer, our challenge is delivering many kinds of products in relatively small batches. Full automation may be too costly for us, but a hybrid approach is an important step forward.
From piglets to dinosaurs, toys are created with precision here at this smart factory. And this is just one of many Hong Kong companies embracing intelligent manufacturing and digitization. And they've done so with the help of the Hong Kong Productivity Council. Over the last decade, the council has supported over 1,200 projects in the Greater Bay Area, offering financial aid and consultation. And 70% of those projects are implemented right here on the Chinese mainland.
Acting as a shared technical department, the Hong Kong PC helps to navigate challenges the small and medium-sized enterprises face in their transition to Industry 4.0.
One common challenge is a lack of knowledge about the technologies, because if you don't know the technology, you don't know really how to use it. There's also a very big misconception about starting the transformation project will require a lot of investment. Well, that's not always true. What we will advise them to do is to start a project, get some savings, and then gradually move on to the next one.
AI is reshaping the world's industries, and a data special zone in New Silicon Valley is taking shape near the Hong Kong-Shenzhen border. What can the Greater Bay Area do to advance China's position in this global AI race?
Our Hong Kong AI industry development study done last year revealed that 44% of companies face difficulty in collecting data, while another 16% reported that it takes a long time to gather enough data. What I would suggest is to use this data special zone to attract AI companies from around the world to set up research center here. This will not only bring AI talents to GBA, but also create more job opportunities to nurture the AI talent that we need.
AI is at the forefront of China's push to invigorate its economy through what it calls new productive forces. As the country grapples with weak demand and a shrinking workforce, data-driven industrialization and automation are set to drive the manufacturing powerhouse up the global value chain. Hong Fei, CGTN, Dongguan in Guangdong Province.
Super Tuesday is here, the biggest day of the 2024 US presidential race so far. Voters in 16 states and 1 territory are casting their ballots in the primaries to choose candidates for president. But it's unlikely to bring any surprises, with Democrat Joe Biden and Republican Donald Trump continuing their march towards a rematch of the 2020 election in November. Well, Associated Press correspondent Philip Crowther is in Charleston in South Carolina. Philip, why is this such a big day?
Well, first of all, it's because of the numbers, because of the number of U.S. states that will be voting during this Super Tuesday. It's also because of the number of delegates that are up for grabs. But specifically this year, this Super Tuesday is going to make it crystal clear who the nominees are going to be for each party. This Super Tuesday is going to bring those two candidates to the brink of their respective nominations. Those candidates, of course, being, as you mentioned, former President Donald Trump and current President Joe Biden. It's worth adding that recent polls show that a large number of Americans don't want to see that matchup, but that is what we are heading for. So on this Super Tuesday, we're going to see 16 U.S. states and 1 U.S. territory voting in their primary elections, all the way from Alaska and California in the west to the likes of Virginia and Vermont in the east, Texas as well in the middle being one of the big prizes. And the prize here are the delegates. These are the party officials who will be representing these candidates and nominating them at the party conventions later this year. Over a third of those delegates are up for grabs in both parties, both the Democratic and Republican parties, holding a large number of elections on this Super Tuesday.
So no real challenge to President Biden's nomination, but what about Donald Trump?
He's not entirely unchallenged because there is Nikki Haley, his former UN ambassador and the former governor of this state here of South Carolina. She was in the governor's mansion for 6 years. And what she has been able to do, though not really developing any momentum in this nominating contest, is that she's been able to show some of the weaknesses in Donald Trump's electorate. There are quite a few people in some states, up to 40% of the electorate, who clearly don't want to see him as their nominee. But on this Super Tuesday, it is very likely that Donald Trump is going to win every state available. That's 15 U.S. states altogether and 1 U.S. territory. That's American Samoa. So the question here in South Carolina is going to be, how does the former governor, how does Nikki Haley react to what is likely going to be a very heavy defeat for her? She's not holding an election night watch party, as tends to be the case on election night. Donald Trump is, though, at his Mar-a-Lago private club, where he presumably will be celebrating a big series of victories. So the question here tonight, I think, when the voting is over and when the results come in, will be, what does Nikki Haley do next? Does she drop out of this race immediately, or does she still stay in and criticize Donald Trump for maybe a few more weeks until he wraps up the nomination? Another question worth asking immediately is, does she endorse the former president? That's what pretty much all other Republican candidates have done who are now out of this race.
Philip, thank you very much. Associated Press correspondent Philip Crowther in South Carolina. Ukraine claims it has sunk a Russian warship in the Black Sea. Kyiv says it was attacked by drones near Crimea in the early hours of Tuesday. Ukrainian intelligence video appears to show the moment that the ship was hit, with damage to its stern plus its left and right sides. Russia has not commented on the claim. Australia's Prime Minister has unveiled a $1.3 billion fund to drive trade and investment in Southeast Asia. It was announced as Anthony Albanese welcomed half a dozen regional leaders to Melbourne for the ASEAN meeting. Albanese says Australia wants to boost clean energy and infrastructure exports and increase visas for travellers from the region. You're watching CGTN. Still ahead. Gaza truce negotiations are extended as Hamas officials and mediators push for a deal before Ramadan. We're in Israel next.
Ever wondered what's the difference between a bear and a bull market? Where are the cash cows? And who are the lame ducks? And what exactly are black swans? Grey rhinos and unicorn companies. Make sense of it all with Global Business, only on CGTN.
I think it should be more global cooperation.
I would like to hear more the voice of the developing countries.
Globalization has lifted more than 1 billion people out of poverty.
The green transition has to happen. It's a necessity.
Well, China and the United States are important powers in the world.
What unites us is much more than what divides us.
And I believe China is committed to this agenda.
Join me, Juliet Mann, to set the agenda at these times every weekend on CGTN.
Strengthening the foundation for a future powered by innovation, where high technology, high efficiency, and high quality converge. These three pillars are set to propel China's new productive forces and supercharge the Chinese economy into a new era of development, new industries, new models, and new growth momentum. Join CGTN as we guide you through the new productive forces poised to redefine the Chinese economy.
Welcome back. A reminder of our headlines. China sets a growth target of around 5% as Premier Li Qiang outlines plans to boost foreign investment and modernise industry. Voters head to the polls for Super Tuesday, the biggest nomination event in the US presidential election, but it's unlikely to bring any surprises. And Gaza ceasefire in the balance. Negotiators extend talks, hoping to reach a deal before Ramadan and avoid an Israeli ground operation. Leaders from the Palestinian armed group Hamas are expected to hold more talks in Cairo to try and reach a ceasefire in Gaza. Diplomatic efforts are intensifying before the religious holiday of Ramadan, which begins next week. Israel has vowed to launch a ground offensive in the southern city of Rafah if no deal is agreed by the 10th of March. More than 1 million displaced Palestinians are sheltering in the city. Let's go to Israel now and talk to our correspondent in Tel Aviv, Alex Cadier. Alex, ceasefire talks continuing in Cairo. Israel hasn't attended. What's the latest there?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Those ceasefire talks rumbling on, extended for an extra day. We've heard some conflicting messages coming out of the state of those negotiations. We've heard that no breakthrough has taken place or has happened yet. We heard Egyptian media reporting that the talks were facing difficulties, but it's important to say that they're carrying on for another day, which also means that those talks haven't collapsed, and they will continue for at least until the end of today, of Tuesday, and that is the state on the ground. We heard from Bassem Naim, who is a senior Hamas official, saying that Hamas had put its proposal on the table. It had been sent across and that the ball was now in Israel's court. Israeli officials saying, well, actually, they were waiting on a response from Hamas on some of the details. We know Israeli officials are not there in person. They say that's because Hamas has failed to provide a list of those surviving hostages in Gaza. Hamas saying that the Israeli bombing raid makes it impossible for them to take stock of which hostages are still alive. So those talks are ongoing. So far, no breakthrough, but also no collapse of those talks. We've got 5 days left until we hit that 10th of March deadline.
Meanwhile, Alex, the United Nations releasing a report into sexual violence perpetrated by Hamas on the 7th of October. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, some really graphic and disturbing details in that report from the United Nations, details that had been previously widely reported here in Israel. We heard from Pramila Patten, who's the UN Special Representative on Sexual Violence in Conflict, saying that a team of UN experts had spent 17 days here in Israel hearing testimony, seeing more than 5,000 images, over 50 hours of video, and had confirmed that there is clear and convincing evidence of rape and sexualized torture being committed against hostages that were taken on October 7th. Perhaps even more worrying than that already very disturbing revelation is that there is evidence that the cruel, degrading and inhuman treatment is ongoing. That is the latest that we're hearing from the United Nations, highlighting what had been widely reported here in Israel as that use of sexual violence by Hamas and other groups against those hostages still being held in Gaza as we speak. As I said, thousands of images were viewed, hours of video, and also interviewing some of those survivors, some of those hostages released back in November. So really a graphic and disturbing report from the United Nations, which had previously been criticized by Israel for not investigating these allegations quickly enough. This report has been lauded today by Israeli authorities, but showing another graphic example of the horrors of this ongoing war.
Alex, thank you very much. Our correspondent Alex Cadier in Tel Aviv. The World Health Organization is raising the alarm on malnutrition among children in Gaza, describing a particularly extreme situation in the north. Let's talk to our correspondent Akram Al-Satari, who is in the southern city of Rafah. Akram, the World Health Organization concerned about conditions in northern Gaza. What more do we know?
Well, according to the very personal statements of the people whom I spoke to, who are living in the Gaza North and who have been trying and struggling to secure any food whatsoever for their families and for their children, the situation in the Gaza North is inconceivable in the sense of the targeting, in the sense of the deprivation, and in the sense of the relentless blockade that has been imposed on the people in the Gaza North, and that the fact that Israel did not allow any kind of a humanitarian assistance whatsoever unless they targeted them and killed the people in there. Children, elderly people are amongst the most vulnerable groups affected by the ongoing blockade on the Gaza North. The graphic and disturbing imaging that are coming from the Gaza North are showing a very alarming level of starvation amongst the people out there. The news that are released by the different hospitals in that area are also indicative of a very severe and life-threatening starvation in the different parts of the Gaza North. People are likely to continue dying because of that ongoing blockade. And rightly, the WHO said that it's going to kill more, and if nothing has been done by the international community, we would be hearing frequent reports about people dying every day.
Meanwhile, more Israeli strikes across Gaza. What's been happening?
Well, the strikes have been hitting different areas in Gaza North, in Gaza Central area, Netzarim area, and also in Khan Yunis area. The military operation, ground military operation, was expanded 2 days ago, and the news about that operation are also some ground checking news. The different places were stormed by the Israeli occupation forces. Around 1,200 Palestinians were arrested in Khan Yunis area. Around 185 people were arrested in Hamad area in the very west of Khan Yunis area. The screams and the outcries of the people who are being investigated by the Israeli intelligence forces on the ground, in the field, can be heard in all different parts of Hamad city. Situation that is extremely dreadful for all the Gazans who are living there, and it continues, the situation and the escalation continues to take the lives of the people and destroy their homes and leave them either lifeless or homeless.
Akram, thank you very much. Our correspondent Akram Al-Satari in Rafah. The headlines again. China sets a growth target of around 5% as Premier Li Qiang outlines plans to boost foreign investment and modernise industry. Voters head to the polls for Super Tuesday, the biggest nomination event in the US presidential election, but it's unlikely to bring any surprises. And Gaza ceasefire in the balance. Negotiators extend talks, hoping to reach a deal before Ramadan and avoid an Israeli ground operation. And that is the world today. Thanks for watching. There's more news on CGTN Europe's channel on the Telegram app, or scan the QR code on the screen to get stories and updates sent direct to your phone. We're back with more news at the top of the hour. Coming up next, it's World Insight. For now, from all of the team in London, it's goodbye.
Hello and welcome to the weather forecast. I'm Tierney. Well, over to Europe. Wet weather will continue to prevail across the majority of the central as well as the southern portion of the continent here on Wednesday, and most of them will be in the form of some light to moderate intensity of rain, and some improvements are likely to arrive here for portions of Spain, France as well as Germany as we head into Thursday. However, wintry precipitation or the rainy conditions will continue here for the majority of the Balkans, so please take a necessary precaution to stay safe. Temperature-wise, we can notice a slight rise in high temperatures for many of Spain, France as well as southern UK over the next couple of days. Most of the high temperatures will be from single digits back up into the teens or even into the upper teens as we head into the latter portion of this week. And meanwhile, still rather cold here for many portions in western Russia. Most of the high temperatures will be about 5 degrees Celsius below freezing, so please dress up accordingly. And about business and travel, and partly sunny skies here in London during the morning hours, and notice that the temperatures difference between the highs and lows will be above 10 degrees Celsius, so please dress up accordingly and put on an extra layer during the morning and evening hours to stay warm. And down in Madrid, we'll see chance of showers with a high of 17, and low temperatures will be just about 3 degrees Celsius. And for other major cities across the central portion of Europe, clear skies for Berlin with a high of 8, and low temperatures will be in the negative readings on Thursday.